WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. I'm a human too. I have a family. I have two kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, it's obviously.
The WNBA thought it could buy peace with $1 million offer. They were wrong. One simple no from Caitlin Clark and the rest of the Players Association has sent shockwaves through the league, shaking its leadership to the core. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, the woman brought in to modernize the league and grow its business, is reportedly stepping down. But this isn't just a resignation. It's a signal that the WNBA is at a crossroads, and the old rules no longer apply. For decades, women's basketball operated under the assumption that players would be grateful for every opportunity, even if it came with low pay, inconsistent travel arrangements, and little say in how the league operated. That era is over. Now, stars like Clark, Angel Reese, and Breanna Stewart are redefining the power structure, showing that the players, not the corporate office, are the true engine of the league's success. This moment isn't just about money. It's about control, respect, and recognition. The league believed $1 million salary would silence critics, appease the union, and secure the future of the 2026 season. Instead, it became the tipping point, exposing a deep divide between ownership and players. The rejection of the offer wasn't a minor negotiation hiccup. It was a declaration that the WNBA must evolve or risk collapse. Fans are watching closely. Social media is buzzing. Analysts are scrambling to interpret what this means for the upcoming season. Will there be a lockout? Can the league recover without its stars? The stakes couldn't be higher. And at the center of this upheaval is one undeniable truth. Caitlin Clark and her peers hold the cards, and they're not afraid to play them. The revolution has already begun, and the commissioner's departure is just the opening move in a battle that will shape women's sports for years to come. The offer that sparked the upheaval was unprecedented in WNBA history. For the first time, top players were presented with $1 million base salary, complete with bonuses designed to reward performance and marketability. On paper, it sounded like a breakthrough, a sign that the league was finally catching up to the financial growth it had promised. After years of capped pay at around $200,000, the league assumed this historic offer would be enough to satisfy the players and secure their commitment for the upcoming season. But the stars weren't buying it. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and the union walked away, refusing even to engage in further negotiation. To the outside world, this might look like stubbornness or greed, but the truth is far more strategic. The players had been watching the league's growth closely. Media rights deals worth over $2 billion, sold-out arenas, skyrocketing merchandise sales. They understood that the league was trying to lock them into a fixed number, while reaping most of the financial upside. This was more than a salary dispute. It was a wake-up call to the WNBA's leadership. The players were no longer willing to be passive participants. They weren't just saying no to the offer. They were rejecting the entire model of control the league had imposed. The rejection sent immediate shockwaves through the league office, leaving owners scrambling to assess the fallout. Public perception also played a role. Fans who had followed Clark's meteoric rise were rallying behind her, seeing this as a fight for fairness rather than personal gain. The narrative was shifting. The players were not merely employees. They were the league's foundation, its biggest asset, and the key to its financial success. In rejecting the deal, they were asserting power, setting the stage for a transformation that would reverberate far beyond the WNBA. To the casual observer, $1 million salary sounds like a massive win. But for the players of the WNBA, it was a symbol of how much the league underestimated their value. The stars weren't just looking at their paychecks, they were looking at the bigger picture. The WNBA recently secured a media rights deal valued at over $2 billion for the next decade, a figure that transforms the league's financial landscape. Yet, the $1 million offer capped their earning potential, keeping the vast majority of profits in the hands of the owners. Caitlin Clark and her peers understood the math. They knew they were driving ticket sales, merchandise, and ratings, yet the league structure treated them like employees rather than partners. They weren't asking for wealth that didn't exist. They were demanding their fair share of the revenue they generated. This wasn't greed, it was leverage. By rejecting the offer, they sent a message that the old way of doing business, low salaries, strict caps, and minimal influence, was no longer acceptable. The players also recognized the power they held off the court. Alternative league sponsorships and equity opportunities gave them options the WNBA had never faced before. They weren't dependent on a single contract or league to sustain their careers. By walking away from the deal, they demonstrated that the WNBA could no longer dictate terms unilaterally. The control had shifted, and the league's leadership had no choice but to acknowledge it. This strategic refusal wasn't just a negotiation tactic. It was a statement of independence. The players were rewriting the rules, showing that they are the product, the brand, and the business. The message was clear. $1 million was no longer sufficient compensation for the stars who are making the WNBA a global phenomenon. Cathy Engelbert arrived at the WNBA with a singular mission: grow the league's business, increase valuations, and modernize operations. She delivered in many respects. Sponsorships increased, the league's market value rose, and media rights deals were secured that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. On paper, her tenure was a success, but the numbers only tell half the story. Engelbert struggled to connect with the players who generate the league's revenue. Travel policies that favored certain athletes, conflicts with overseas contracts, and a lack of response to online harassment fueled growing dissatisfaction. The tipping point came during a high-profile CNBC interview, where Engelbert was asked about racism, harassment, and the toxic side of fan engagement. Instead of defending the players, she offered a corporate, detached response, comparing the league's challenges to historical NBA rivalries. The players felt abandoned. Their frustrations, previously managed behind closed doors, spilled into public view. The union criticized Engelbert's leadership, highlighting a disconnect between corporate objectives and athlete welfare. Despite her successes in business, she failed to earn the trust and respect of the people whose talent drives the WNBA. The rejection of the $1 million offer made this failure impossible to ignore. It wasn't just a financial dispute. It was a public demonstration that Engelbert had lost control. The league needed a commissioner who could navigate both business growth and player relations, and it became evident that Engelbert could not bridge that gap. Her resignation, or forced departure, signals a turning point. The WNBA is no longer just about financial metrics. It's about building a league that values and empowers its athletes. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Breanna Stewart are not just athletes. They are the architects of a new era in women's basketball. Their influence extends far beyond the court. With ticket sales soaring, arenas selling out, and merchandise flying off shelves, these players have become the primary drivers of the WNBA's success. And they know it. The rejection of the $1 million offer was more than a negotiation. It was a declaration of independence. The players are no longer willing to be passive participants in a system that undervalues their contributions. By walking away from the deal, they demonstrated that they hold the real power and that the league cannot succeed without them. Alternative leagues have amplified this shift. Unrivaled, founded by Stewart and Nafisa Collier, offers players lucrative short-term contracts, equity, and a player-first environment. Suddenly, the WNBA is not the only game in town. Stars now have options, leverage, and the ability to dictate terms. This has fundamentally altered the power dynamics, forcing the league to acknowledge that its players are not just talent. They are stakeholders, entrepreneurs, and business partners. Social media has magnified the revolution. Fans are rallying behind the players, using hashtags, memes, and campaigns to demand fairness and equity. The Invest in Women message has transformed into a louder, clearer call. Pay women their worth. The narrative has shifted, and the players' unity is now undeniable. This revolution isn't just financial, it's cultural. The players are challenging a decades-old system, proving that women's sports are not a charity or an afterthought. They are redefining the rules, asserting their rights, and reshaping the league's future. For the first time, the WNBA faces a league where the stars truly call the shots. The old corporate hierarchy is on notice, and the revolution is just beginning. The rejection of the historic offer had immediate consequences. Sources indicate that Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's resignation, or forced departure, was a direct result of the players' unprecedented show of power. The league had miscalculated the influence of its stars, and the fallout was swift and unavoidable. Engelbert's exit is not just a personnel change. It represents a systemic failure in leadership and a recognition that the old model of control is no longer viable. Owners are scrambling. The WNBA faces a leadership vacuum at the most critical moment in its history. With the 2026 season on the horizon, negotiations must resume, but the pressure is now entirely on the league. Any delay risks a lockout, which could undo the growth and momentum the league has built over the past decade. Ticket sales, TV ratings, and sponsorships hang in the balance. This reshuffling isn't just about optics. By removing Engelbert, the league is attempting to reset negotiations and present a fresh face to the union. It is a strategic move, a way to signal change, appease players, and avoid a full-scale labor dispute. Yet the underlying power dynamics remain unchanged. The players have shown they control the negotiation leverage, and the league must now adapt or risk further disruption. The broader message is clear. The era of unquestioned corporate control is over. The commissioner's resignation symbolizes a larger shift in women's sports. Athletes are no longer just participants. They are stakeholders, influencers, and negotiators. The WNBA's leadership must evolve, or the league will struggle to maintain its relevance and stability. Fans, analysts, and players alike are watching closely. The next steps will define the league's trajectory, setting the stage for either reconciliation or continued conflict. Engelbert's exit is only the beginning, and the coming weeks promise a drama that could reshape the WNBA for generations. The battle over the WNBA isn't being fought only in boardrooms. It's being waged across social media, in the court of public opinion. Fans are no longer passive observers. They are vocal advocates, amplifying the players' demands and demanding accountability from the league. Hashtags like #PayWomen and #ClarkEffect are trending as supporters celebrate the players' refusal to accept a deal that undervalues their contributions. The mainstream media is scrambling to frame the story. Some outlets portray the players as greedy, ungrateful, or unrealistic, but the audience sees the reality behind the headlines. Sold-out arenas, record-breaking TV ratings, and merchandise sales tell a different story. Fans are witnessing firsthand that the players are the engines of the league's success, and they are unwilling to tolerate a system that ignores that fact. Social media has also provided a platform for players to control their own narrative. Clark, Stewart, and their peers are no longer relying solely on traditional media to communicate. Instead, they share their victories, frustrations, and perspectives directly with fans. The WNBA stars have become storytellers in their own right, shaping public perception and creating pressure on the league to negotiate in good faith. The fan base has evolved alongside the players. No longer satisfied with being spectators, supporters are demanding equity, transparency, and fairness. They see the financial disparity, understand the billion-dollar revenue deals, and recognize the injustice in capping player salaries, while owners collect the majority of profits. The conversation has shifted from a discussion about opportunity to a debate about fairness and respect. This convergence of social media, fan advocacy, and player activism has created unprecedented leverage. The league can no longer ignore public sentiment. The players' unified message is clear. They are the foundation of the WNBA, and the fans are watching every move. The pressure is mounting, and the narrative is tipping in favor of the athletes, reshaping the power dynamics and signaling a historic turning point in women's sports. With Engelbert's resignation, the WNBA faces a leadership vacuum at a time of extreme uncertainty. Finding a new commissioner won't be simple. The league needs someone who can navigate a delicate balance, appease owners, negotiate with an empowered players association, and maintain public trust. A corporate executive risks repeating past mistakes, while a former player might signal a new era of partnership. But the stakes are enormous either way. The clock is ticking. The 2026 season is on the horizon, and the threat of a lockout looms large. If negotiations stall, the consequences could be catastrophic: lost revenue, diminished fan engagement, and a blow to the league's hard-earned credibility. The next commissioner will be expected to act as a wartime leader, capable of steering the league through a period of transformation, not just a caretaker during peaceful times. Beyond the immediate challenges, the WNBA must confront a deeper truth. The old power structure no longer works. The stars have leverage, alternatives, and public support. Unrivaled and overseas opportunities mean players are no longer tied to a single league for financial stability. Leadership must evolve to reflect this new reality. The commissioner is no longer the sole authority. The players are co-architects of the league's future. The decisions made in the coming weeks will define the WNBA for years. Will the league embrace a partnership model, giving athletes equity, revenue sharing, and real influence? Or will it cling to outdated systems and risk alienating its stars? The answer will determine not just the 2026 season, but the trajectory of women's sports as a whole. As the league scrambles to find new leadership, the message from the players is unmistakable. They are no longer just participants, they are stakeholders, and their influence will shape every decision moving forward. The WNBA stands at a historic crossroads, and the choices made now will echo far beyond basketball courts, redefining the balance of power in professional sports. The upheaval in the WNBA is about far more than salaries or a single commissioner. It is a bellwether for women's sports worldwide. For decades, female athletes were expected to accept limited pay, restricted control, and minimal influence while delivering the entertainment and revenue that fueled the leagues. The players' refusal of the million-dollar deal signals a fundamental shift. Women are asserting themselves as partners, not employees. This moment sets a precedent. The WNBA stars are proving that athletes have agency, leverage, and the ability to reshape the business of sports. Their demands for revenue sharing, equity, and influence over league decisions are no longer radical. They are logical extensions of the value they create. The industry can no longer rely on outdated hierarchies where corporate executives dictate terms and players are expected to comply. The ripple effects will be felt across other sports as well. Women's leagues in soccer, hockey, and volleyball are watching closely, learning that strategic collective action can deliver results. Investors, sponsors, and media partners will also take note. The players who produce the product are now a driving force in determining how that product is monetized and shared. The financial math is undeniable. Billion-dollar media deals, record attendance, and merchandise sales provide ample revenue to compensate athletes fairly. The era of token pay increases, cap salaries, and one-sided contracts is ending. The WNBA is not just negotiating for itself. It is rewriting the blueprint for all women's sports, showing that empowerment and equity are achievable when athletes organize, unite, and wield their influence wisely. This isn't merely a labor dispute. It is a cultural and economic revolution. It demonstrates that the power dynamics in professional sports are shifting, with athletes taking control of their destinies. The implications are profound. Leagues must adapt, or they risk losing their top talent, fan support, and relevance. The WNBA is leading this charge, and the eyes of the sporting world are watching. The commissioner is gone. The million-dollar offer was rejected. The WNBA is at a crossroads, and the revolution is just beginning. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Breanna Stewart, and their peers have demonstrated that stars hold the power, that fans are watching, and that the rules of the game have changed forever. The next chapter of the league is unwritten. Owners must decide whether to embrace partnership, equity, and fairness, or cling to the old ways and risk alienating the very talent that drives their business. Negotiations will be tense. Lockouts are possible. Revenue is at stake. But one thing is certain, the players will not back down. They have proven that their influence extends beyond the court, shaping the league, the narrative, and the future of women's sports. Fans, analysts, and the media are all witnesses to this transformation. Social media campaigns, sold-out arenas, and record-breaking ratings highlight the players' impact. The message is clear. The athletes are indispensable, and their demands are justified. This is not about greed. It is about recognition, fairness, and rewriting the rules of a system that has long undervalued women's contributions. The WNBA's upheaval is a story of empowerment, strategy, and courage. It shows the world that athletes can take control, influence business decisions, and spark change that reverberates far beyond sports. Every decision in the coming weeks, from commissioner selection to contract negotiations, will set the tone for the next decade of women's basketball. As the league navigates this uncertain future, one thing remains undeniable. History is being written in real time. The players have taken the first shot, and the WNBA must adapt or face consequences. The 2026 season, the structure of the league, and the very perception of women's sports are all on the line. The revolution is underway, and the world is watching.